The lecture is about non-governmental organization, which may be established by governments, foundations, companies, or individuals. NGOs are highly diverse organizations, engaged in a wide range of activities. The number of NGOs in America is 1.5 million, and India has around 2 million in 2009. Last but not the least, the speaker suggested that it is hard to define the term NGO. The most common focus is on orientation and level of operation.
The lecturer compares the expenses of education among different European countries. UK spent 1.04% of its GDP on education institutions, which was much lesser compared to other European countries, such as Italy, Denmark, and Spain. The expenditure of France is closer to that of UK. By contrast, Denmark and Finland spend much more than the rest of the European countries. Finland's education spending is twice that of the UK.
The lecture is about the changes that have taken place in coffee production in Vietnam. The production of coffee has increased from 30 billion to 60 billion since last 10 years. The huge demand of Europe and America has made Vietnam the second biggest producer, which has greatly affected Colombia's production, resulting in a huge decrease in their coffee output. Changes in people's drinking habits and the population growth also have great impact on coffee industry.
The lecture is about Winston Churchill, who was the Prime Minister of United Kingdom during the Second World War. Some of his decisions, such as restoring the gold standard in 1924, were disastrous. Churchill saw himself as a champion of democracy, and was profoundly aware of his own role and destiny. The lecture is about how animals are able to survive and reproduce in different conditions. They are able to maintain their body underwater, tolerate different temperatures and seasons. The researchers used frog as an example, and put it into water, and boiled the water. The result proved that frogs can adjust their body temperature according to the change in water temperature, and therefore survive.
The lecturer talks about brain development. People develop language ability and cognitive ability as the brain grows. Different periods of brain development have different influence on people. For example, in short term, such as 3 months, the brain can only develop low-level ability. Childhood brain development has great impact in terms of sensory pathways, language and higher cognitive functions.
The lecture is about various kinds of frogs, and the variation observed in the number of limbs they have. The phenomenon has existed for many years. Some frogs have more limbs while others have fewer, due to various reasons such as genetic mutation. People also suspect this could be due to the pollution in the rivers in which these frogs live.
The lecture is about human creativity and its meaning for human life. It has 3 elements including process, people and product. Out of these, process is the key element. The speaker emphasizes that the creativity of a finished product is a proxy for the creativity of the person who produced it. Therefore, a creative product should be surprising, original, beautiful and useful. It is necessary for people to have ability, grit and a right mindset in order to develop creative products.
In this lecture, the speaker talks about wind power plant. A wind turbine is a device that can convert wind into mechanical energy, which can be used for water power pump, or for an electricity generator. The efficiency of a turbine depends on the wind speed, the number of sails, the area, and the angles that sails make to the wind. By bending the angle of blades, the wind hits them, and could turn the blades, which can be used to generate power. Lastly, the speaker indicates we could make simple windmills to drive electronic device.
The lecturer talks about a new kind of remote monitoring technology, called underwater Antares detectors. These detectors can be used to observe the environment change, and water temperature change. More importantly, these detectors are installed underwater, to monitor fish's reaction to the feeding. By putting a camera into the cage, and then putting the cage into the water, people can observe the fish's reaction to feed, so that it can help people to observe fish reactions without being physically there. This makes it possible for people to change their feeding strategy quickly when fish do not react to the feeding. The technology can also identify the water quality.
The lecturer talks about thermodynamics, a major theory of physics. To begin with, the speaker points out that thermodynamics is about heat and temperature transmission, and their relation to energy and work. After that, he mentions that the laws of thermodynamics, which describe how quantities behave under various circumstances, are constant and statistical, and obeyed under most situations. However, there are exceptions. At end, he emphasizes that exceptions happen when it comes to kinetic energy of molecules, which is about random motion of atom.
The lecture is about boys' and girls' performances in English and mathematics. Girls usually outperform boys in English over the first 6 years, while there is no significant difference in maths. There are 3 reasons to explain this: biological, social factors and preschool factors. Girls' pattern recognition abilities are better than those of boys.
The lecture discusses how maternal care is a critical factor in the development of living beings. The speaker discusses this with the example of rats. Mother rats, which spend a lot of time licking and grooming their pups, see their pups grow up into calm adults, whereas those which don't spend time nurturing their pups grow up with high anxiety levels. Licking and grooming regulates the development of endocrine, emotional and cognitive response to stress.
The lecture is about economic development in Latin America in last few decades. Overall, the economy grew by over 80%. However, after the globalization and reforms, the growth slowed down from a high of 80% to a low of 10%. Eventually, the growth became unsustainable, leading some people to question if reforms had a positive impact at all.
The lecture is about population growth and resource consumption from 1900 to 2000. In 1900, the population was about 1.5 billion, and it increased to 6 billion in 2000. The resulting increase in energy consumption was almost 16-folds. Due to the urbanization, cities, which only account for 2% of the land, have 50% of the total population and consume 75% of the natural resources. At the end, the lecturer emphasizes that people not only use every resource on the planet, but also produce tons of wastes, putting a huge burden on environment.
The lecturer talks about a major finding from a biology study. Although butterfly, flowers, dolphin and other creatures look different, They are closely related to each other. They all rely on DNA and RNA to store and transmit genetic information. They are all based on cells, which is the fundamental structure of lives. All organisms have metabolism system, which convert energy from one form to another.
The lecturer talks about a survey of 100 CEOs, in which they were asked for their opinion about what affects the company's operations most, and which area should be concentrated upon with maximum effort. 58% of them mentioned that information technology plays an important role, because it is time-consuming and extremely complex. Finally, the speaker mentioned other two aspects are marketing management and financial management, which are equally important.
This lecture is about citizen empowerment and non-profit sector. The non-profit sector is worth $1 trillion and there are 700,000 organizations in Australia alone. The United Nations recognizes 37,000 civil social organizations, and 3,500 of which was accredited to the World Summit on Sustainable Development. The best predictor of governmental success is the power and density of a country's non-governmental associations.
The lecture is about marshmallow experiment. In the experiment, children are promised a bonus if they don't eat candy for 15 minutes. The children under 4-year-old will eat it at once, while older children can resist for a longer time, and thus receive more extra rewards. In the test, the longer a child can resist the treat has been correlated with higher competency later in life.
The lecturer discusses 4 reasons to support open borders. Firstly, the speaker believes that people should be allowed to move freely on principle. Secondly, open board contributes to the economy of developing countries. Thirdly, opening borders provides people from developing countries to get richer in developed countries. Final is the humanitarian reason and social justice. In conclusion, the speaker supports opening borders on the ground of fundamental principles and economic, social and humanitarian reasons.